usually happens, the government ministers put forward resolutions stating that money will be spent and how. These estimates are debated in the House in committee. When the various resolutions have been agreed to, they are incorporated into bills, which are passed in the usual way. On the agenda for this sitting under public business, the Jamaica Development Bank Repeal Act 2022 is to be taken. Also on the agenda, the Emergency Powers Parish of St. Catherine No. 2 Regulations 2022 is to be tabled. A state of public emergency is now underway in the parish of St. Catherine following several incidents of violence in the parish recently. A state of public emergency allows the security forces or authorized persons enhanced powers of search and arrest and limit the right of detained persons to due process. The measure can only remain in force for 14 days and must get the support of both houses of Parliament. That's what's on the agenda. It should be noted that elements of the day's agenda can be changed or moved. But before we go, here are a few things you should bear in mind if you plan to attend a session at Gordon House. No visitor shall create any act of disorder within the precincts of the House. No visitor shall be admitted to the House without first obtaining an admission card. Visitors who remain within the precincts of the House during a suspension of the session are asked to keep silent. No photography, videography, or sketching of the proceedings is allowed, unless so authorized by the presiding officer, and there should be no smoking inside the parliamentary building. Here are a few more interesting facts about the Houses of Parliament. The office of the Leader of the Opposition is established in the Constitution. Jamaica led the Commonwealth of Nations in enshrining this office into the Constitution. The Leader of the Opposition must be consulted on a number of important matters, such as the appointment of the Chief Justice, the President of the Court of Appeal, and the members of the Services Commissions. The opposition leader nominates 8 of the 21 senators, and since the votes of 2/3 of all members of the Senate are required for parliamentary amendment of the most significant constitutional provisions, then at least one senator nominated by the Leader of the Opposition must support any constitutional amendment in order for it to gain parliamentary approval. Now over to the proceedings.
That our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, leader of government business, was unsuccessful in her bid to become the Commonwealth Secretary General. Such is the nature of things, that some must rule and some must obey. And we wish her all the best for the future. This morning, I also asked the Senate to recognize the service of former Member of Parliament, former Minister of Tourism, Francis Tulloch, who passed away recently at 81 years of age. Mr. Tulloch, an attorney at law and someone who I knew in that capacity, was elected to Parliament in 1972, represented St. James Central from 76 to 80, a member of the People's National Party. And he also served, I'm reading here, in Eastern Hanover from 93 to 97, and St. James Western from 97 to 2002. He was appointed the Minister of Tourism in 97 and served in that capacity for 2 years. So we make a note of another Jamaican who has passed, someone who has served his country and the Parliament, and I ask that the Senate make note of his contribution and passing. I believe that Senator Allen and Senator Sinclair have a brief intervention at this time before we begin the business of the day.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This morning, I rise to pay tribute to a man known to me personally all my life. A man who served his country in various capacities, as noted by the President. He served as Member of Parliament for Central St. James, and then the reconstituted West Central St. James, then Eastern Hanover, and Northwest St. James. The only person I know with that dubious title of having served 4 constituencies. I know him well because he was also a family friend. My father served as a councillor with him when he was Member of Parliament for West Central St. James. And in addition to those years of service in representational politics, as you've indicated, Mr. President, he also served in the capacity as Parliamentary Secretary in the then Ministry of Labour and Employment, Minister of State in the Ministry of Transport, Minister of State in the Ministry of Tourism, and finally, Minister of Tourism. It was in 1997, this month, 25 years ago, that I worked with him, having completed my studies abroad. And because of working with him in the Ministry of Tourism as an assistant to him, that's when my eyes were open to tourism and this amazing industry, which he always believed had the ability to reach and serve and be of benefit to more Jamaicans. He was a man of equity, a man who believed in the people, a man who believed and was led by the importance of service to people. I appreciated serving with him because he helped me to also appreciate working in government and the importance of public service. He was instrumental to the formation of JUTA and JCAL. He always fought for, as much as he did for the large investors, he always said, what about the small hoteliers? What about Miss Mildred McCullough and the craft traders? What about the raftsmen in Martha Brae or Portland? He always worked. One could consider him sort of a workaholic. And I remember vividly leaving from Kingston on one assignment to Port Antonio one year, thinking that was the end of the journey. And at about 9 o'clock that night, he said, duty had called and we needed to be in Lethe for the next morning. And we drove from Port Antonio to Hanover because duty called. In speaking to his son last night, Matthew, I am comforted by the fact that he did his job and it is well with his soul. He got his last blessings, and his family is pleased with that, as he died peacefully yesterday evening at home. As I said before, he believed in fairness and balance. He was always guided by the Tourism Master Plan for Sustainable Development, and he never strayed from it. I give thanks to him and the life that he led. Mr. Tulloch, I walked the halls of tourism with you. I saw you at the negotiating table, how you quelled disgruntled voices. You settled disputes. I walked the hills and valleys of the constituency of Northwest St. James with you. I drove, as I said before, from Kingston to Port Antonio and Hanover one day. But now you must take your rest. You served your country, your constituents in all 4 constituencies. You served as a businessman, an attorney, and notary public. And you served as a man of God, a man of the cloth, having been ordained as a deacon in the Roman Catholic Church. To your widow, Doreen, children, Tony, Gina, David, Andrew, Erica, and Matthew, my condolences to you at this very difficult time. May you rest in eternal peace. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Senator Allen. Senator Sinclair.
Thank you, Mr. President. Francis Tulloch, Little David, as he was affectionately called by many persons. You know, when one considers, and just looking at Francis Tulloch, we understand how he got the name Little David. He had similar features to Michael Manley in appearance, in speech, in attitude. And it was as a result of that he was given the name Little David. But Francis Tulloch is one who one would have to speak highly of. He's someone who was born in Kingston. And if you know how Montegonians are, people tend to say that Montegonians are clannish. Tend to say that. But Francis Tulloch, although born in Kingston, came to Montego Bay and he was embraced by Montegonians. He was loved by Montegonians regardless of whichever political side of the fence you were on. Francis Tulloch was one who was always calm, always in his presentations reflected high intellect. He had charisma, real charisma. Yes, I think the ladies loved him tremendously. And he was a practical soul. You know, we'd always find ourselves probably in the same place when we go into the public space. There too. And Francis would always say to me, Charles, you're not coming home. You're not coming home. And I would respond to him to say, you know, Francis, I am home. And I am comfortable where I am. It was a joke that we had amongst ourselves. But he was a great politician, a tremendous attorney at law. And he was also a good businessman. It's not many persons who you find in the political sphere who can cross into various constituencies and be successful. Francis Tulloch did that. And the constituencies were not of a similar kind. So he was in Eastern Hanover, a more rural type of constituency. He came into, well, he started in Central St. James, as it was then known. Also in West Central St. James and Northwest. And if what you find is that rural versus urban. But Francis was able to manage in both. And it says a lot about him. He was able to interact with people, regardless of your status in life. And so one could easily say that he was one who walked with kings, but he never lost the common touch. Francis Tulloch was a close friend of my father, my late father. And in fact, I recall when I was at prep school, my mother would collect us at school. And we would be in the back of the motor car. And she was out there distributing pamphlets for Francis Tulloch. That was way back in 1972. In 1972. So I believe that in that little way I contributed to his victory in 1972. Yes. You know, so his kids, Tony, you made reference to Tony. And we both went to the same school. So we would have that type of interaction. and Montagonians tend to be one family, regardless of whichever side of the fence that we're on. The St. James Municipal Corporation recognized his value and his contribution to the parish of St. James by naming what was previously just referred to as the Long Hill Road. That is a road that starts at Reading and takes you into Anchovy. It was renamed in honor of Francis Tulloch. And that was done by the Municipal Corporation in recognition of his work. Pardon me? The resolution started when I was the mayor, sir, where we renamed several roads in honor of persons who contributed, but the process was completed after I had, but I was still a councillor and still contributed to the process. So, in closing, he lived a good life. He left the political arena and became a deacon in the Roman Catholic Church. And so I am certain that his soul is in the right place. May he rest in peace. Condolences to his family, his immediate family, to his political family. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. The custom, and Senator Morris will concur. The custom has really been to have moments of silence for members who have passed, who are members of the Senate. In exercise of my discretion, I would ask the members of the Senate to rise and observe a minute's silence. May his soul rest in peace and light perpetual shine upon him. I would ask the clerk to prepare the appropriate missive to the family of Francis Tulloch. And as usual, if you would just provide a copy of the Hansard indicating the tributes that were paid to Francis Tulloch. Thank you very much. Sorry. Statements by ministers. Announcements.
Laid on the table of the Senate today are the following: the General Consumption Tax Amendment of Schedules Order 2022 and its resolution under the General Consumption Tax Act, and Number 125, the Emergency Powers Act, the Emergency Powers, Parish of St. James, Number 3, Regulations 2022. 2 under this Act. As contained in the Jamaica Gazette Supplement, Proclamations, Rules and Regulations, 1267, Volume 145, dated Wednesday, June 22, 2022, number 88.
Thank you very much. Bills brought from the Honourable House of Representatives, petitions, papers, reports from committees, notices of motions given orally, questions and answers to questions. I'm sorry, Minister. Mr. Minister, I recognize you from a seat other than your own.
You're gracious, sir. Thank you. Mr. President, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the Senate, I will move the following motion. Whereas subsection 1, F1 of section 41 of the Constitution of Jamaica requires a member of this Honourable Senate to vacate his seat if he becomes a party to any contract with the Government of Jamaica for or on account of the public service. And whereas Senator Sapphire Longmore is a consultant psychiatrist who may from time to time enter into contracts with the Government of Jamaica and its agencies, and whereas Senator Sapphire Longmore has disclosed her interest in being contracted by the Ministry of Health and Wellness as a consultant to coordinate a mental health program for the people of Jamaica, be it resolved that this Honourable Senate, pursuant to subsection 1F1 of section 41 of the Constitution, and in recognition of her having disclosed her interest, exempt the said senator from vacating her seat for reasons aforesaid. Mr. President, I further beg to give notice that at a later stage today, I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take this motion.
Thank you. Questions and answers to questions? Senator Morris, I saw you rising there. I thought you were going to ask about the state of the abattoir in Port Maria. Questions and answers to questions. Motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice. Motions relating to the sitting of the Senate. Motions for leave to introduce bills. The presentation of bills without the leave of the Senate first obtained. Public business.
Mr. President, I now move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take the motion, notice of which I gave earlier. Mr. President, I now move that the motion, notice of which I gave earlier, be approved.
Members should have heard the question. Those in favour? Against?
Mr. President, I'd like to present for public business to start the debate on the bill labeled the Development, rather the Jamaica Development Bank Repeal Act.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you.
This is an act to provide for the transfer of the assets of Jamaica Development Bank and Development Bank of Jamaica and to repeal the Jamaica Development Bank Act. This is the one we're dealing with. Eh? Yeah, I'm just making sure because I didn't have it. Thank you, Minister.
We understand why that's necessary.
Yes, Mr. President.
You know, that will be answered in cabinet.
Minister, don't take on Senator Bunting and Senator Morris. You know, they will drag you into the tall grass and beat you with experience.
I know where they want to get to, Mr. President, but it's a long time in coming. Mr.
Minister, as a matter of interest, you're opening today. Is that it? You're going to just open, or
No,
you're taking
no,
the
no,
debate?
we're taking it right through.
Mr. Bunting, you have...
No objection. The bill is a straightforward and simple one, Mr. President. We're really changing the name of one institution which was established all the way back in 1969, and that's the Jamaica Development Bank. And the bill, of course, is Jamaica Development Bank Repeal Act of 2022. Straightforward. That will be repealed, and the new name will be the Development Bank of Jamaica. All goodwill, rights, interests, property, contingent and prospective property of every kind, whether tangible or intangible, being a bank. So all that is being moved into the new entity called the Development Bank of Jamaica. And it's a very straightforward activity that I now ask the Senate to debate and move it right through to its closure. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yeah, I'm distracted by the opening of the Kingston Biennale on Sunday at 11 o'clock. So, you can go ahead, Senator.
Thank you. Mr. President, the acting leader of government business is correct. It's not controversial, but I will assist him in informing him that the DBJ is not a new institution, but one that has been around for decades.
I said since 69.
No,
I did say that.
That's the JDB.
I said that too. And anything else I said.
As I said, Mr. Hill is having a rough week. And even when I'm trying to assist him, he's digging himself into a deeper hole. But essentially, Mr. President, the Jamaica Development Bank, which was established in '69, got itself into some trouble in terms of bad loans. And in fact, it informed the shift in policy, which has been consistent across administrations since that time, that as a general rule, our development banks have avoided direct lending and mostly operated through financial institutions and operated as funders rather than taking the credit risk. And a lot of that was that sort of best practice was learned from the experience of the Jamaica Development Bank, which had a very, very high percentage of its portfolio non-performing. Having said that, I think the DBJ, which has, well, first it was the NDB, which was the first successor, the NDB and the ACB, the National Development Bank, which dealt with the manufacturing sector primarily, and the Agricultural Credit Bank, which dealt with the agricultural sector. And the two of those successor development institutions to the Jamaica Development Bank eventually merged and became the Development Bank of Jamaica. So, and that has been around now for decades. It's not a new institution. What we have here is really just a tidying up of, and in a sense, a liquidation of the Development Bank of Jamaica. And what we're really doing is transferring the remaining assets and liabilities of the Development Bank of Jamaica of the Development Bank of Jamaica to the Development Bank. In fact, there's a yes, we're in consideration for transferring those, we're issuing new shares in the DBJ to the Accountant General, as the equity in the institution will increase by virtue of the fact that net assets are being transferred. This is really something that could actually have taken place long ago, but I imagine they were holding on to see if these loans could be resolved and whatever residual security, mortgages, instruments of establishing security may have, debentures and so on, may have resolved themselves. But there comes a point when it doesn't make sense keeping an institution limping along for, you know, really just some residual assets and liabilities. So this is, as the Minister said, not controversial. It is something that we support. And of course, it will also be exempt from the usual transfer tax and stamp duties. Thank you, Mr. President.
The member has contributed some. Minister, I think you're going to ask for second reading.
As for the second reading of the bill.
Thank you very much. Minister has asked for the second reading of the bill. Those in favor? Against? Madam Clerk?
A bill entitled An Act to Provide for the Transfer of the Assets of the Jamaica Development Bank to the Development Bank of Jamaica Limited and to repeal the Jamaica Development Bank Act and for connected matters. Read a second time.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. The Senate will now resolve itself into a committee of the whole Senate to consider the bill clause by clause. Based on what the utterances made by the members, I think I can put clauses 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. All in favor? Aye. Against? Let's have it. I put the title and enacting clause. All in favor? Aye. Against? The question is that I do report the bill as having passed committee stage without amendment. Those in favor? Aye. Against? I do report I do report the bill as having passed committee stage without amendment. Minister?
Mr. President, I now ask that the bill be read a third time.
Members should have heard the question from the Honourable Minister. Those in favor? Against?
A bill entitled An Act to Provide for the Transfer of the Assets of the Jamaica Development Bank to the Development Bank of Jamaica Limited and to repeal the Jamaica Development Bank Act and for connected matters. Read a third time and passed.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Minister?
Mr. President, it is not contemplated for us to do any further business today. I therefore ask that the House adjourn for a date to be fixed. That's it. That's
Minister,
in honor of Lambert.
Minister has asked that the Senate be adjourned for a date to be fixed, but I really can't do so before pointing out that the National Gallery exhibition entitled appropriately perhaps entitled The Pressure, is to open this Sunday. The Kingston Biennale 2022, it's being celebrated in the 60th year of our independence. The National Gallery actually celebrates its 50th anniversary in 2024. This exhibition is featuring 24 Jamaican artists, some of who are here and some of who reside overseas. I've had the opportunity to see the exhibition, and it is a remarkable effort. The curator is actually a Professor Scott, a Jamaican who resides and lectures at a very prestigious university in the United States, along with our senior chief curator, O'Neill Lawrence. The exhibition opens on Sunday, and we are having a special viewing next week Sunday, and I'm going to invite members of the Senate to attend that. I expect that some of you would come on Sunday, but next week is perhaps a little less crowded. So Sunday, it will be Sunday the 3rd. And the exhibition is going to run until the end of September, I believe. So you are welcome to attend.
Mr. President, I think it's important so that we acknowledge your commitment to the gallery and your efforts. I think it is very, very important. So I would like to extend that to you, sir, and our gracious gratitude.
Fortunately, it's not something that I've had to run for. The question is that the Senate be adjourned for a date to be fixed. Those in favor? Against? The Senate now is now adjourned for a date to be fixed. Thank you very much.